Hello everybody, I'm Evan Kamiko. 20 years of IUS TV continues right now. Each week, join myself and an expert line panel dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs right here in Bloomington to the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we got a great show for you coming up on the Toss-Up. The Big Ten is one of the best volleyball conferences in the country. Last year's national champion was from the Big Ten, and 7 teams are ranked in the top 25 to start this season. Indiana has had a rebuild under head coach Steve Aird, but the program has had a lot of questions lately. Today, we're here to break it all down with an absolutely loaded episode. And I know I say loaded every week, but this week, I promise you, it's loaded. Later in the show, Spencer Hoffman's going to jump into the studio for an update on head coach Steve Aird. And IU women's volleyball player Paula Cerame is here for an interview for Know Your Hoosier, but that's coming up way later in the show. Joining me right now is Griffin Healy from the Hoosier Network, and from our own IUSTV Sports Gabe Fencer, Andy Mazer. Guys, welcome to the show.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great now that you're back here. Andy, I know this is your first time. Welcome in.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you, Gabe. We've seen you a few times.
I'm a little disappointed that Griffin got his own title, but it's okay. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I mean, he works for a different network. He's got to get his own title. Anyway, let's jump right into it. Gabe, I'll start with you. What are the expectations for this volleyball team as they continue their rebuild?
Obviously, we know the team started off hot. They beat Western Carolina, who had a 6-4 record. They lost to TCU, who was 3-5. So it's kind of neutral, honestly. You never really know what's going to happen. Obviously, when the Big Ten teams start picking up later in the season, it's going to get a little tougher, but they're off to Kentucky. We'll see how that goes.
What about you, Andy? What are kind of your expectations so far?
My expectations for this team is just to go out there and compete every match they can. Clearly, we can beat the smaller teams, and where we struggled is the bigger teams, like, for example, Texas A&M, who we're coming up to face. Those types of teams we haven't been able to beat. But then if you look at it, like game like TCU, we took it to 5 sets, and I think that's just what IU volleyball right now is all about, competitive game.
Griff?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with them. I think they're capable, obviously, of being able to be better than last year. Last year they went 10-22, and seeing that their original start, they went 5. They're currently 5-4, and I think they're on a better pace than they were last year. So it's just continuing that and cleaning up on their errors.
And Gabe, you kind of already, led into some of the tournament play. But Andy, how else has the tournaments been? There's been 3 tournaments so far. How was the one in Bloomington? One in Bloomington
went pretty well. The Hoosiers went 2-1, 2 victories. And that really just set the tone for the beginning of the season. Then, they went to the Invitational. So sorry.
You're good.
And again, 2-1 on that tournament as well. This tournament, they kind of struggled, went 1-2. Still some competitive games though.
Yeah, Gabe?
Last 2 tournaments were away. The first home tournament here was a lot better than the last 2 tournaments. It was split. The last 2 tournaments were split. So I don't know what my conclusion is on the last tournament. It was a tough loss against Jacksonville State. Obviously, I covered that game. I was there. It was hard to watch. But the first 2 games were okay. Last 2 tournaments were split, so I don't really know what's going to happen. But the tournaments are pretty neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not as hard of a loss to Jacksonville State. They are predicted to win their conference. I believe they're in the A-Sun, but they're predicted to win their conference. So it's not a bad loss. And like Gabe said, it's just, watching the team, they can fight, they can keep up. It's just a matter of keeping it in their control.
And in their control is a big thing. And another thing is, we want to talk about the players specifically. What's a player to really keep your eye on as the season keeps progressing, Griff?
So one I have is the freshman outside hitter, Candela Alonso Corcellus. In her first tournament here, she comes from Spain. In her first tournament here, she had 21 kills and 19 digs, and she was just an immediate impact player, and she had her first double-double against Western Carolina. I can't wait to see her for the rest of the season.
Andy, what about you? Who do you got?
I go with Maddie Cyrus. She's been absolutely outstanding this season. She tied her career high in kills against Jacksonville State, then goes to Western Carolina, gets a double-double, 15 kills, 12 digs. She's definitely a player to watch for.
Gabe?
Andy took my player, Maddie Cyrus. It's honestly a no-brainer. Maddie Cyrus is that player that you just, whenever you hear IU volleyball, she's the one that comes up. You hear a kill, that's Maddie Cyrus. A slap, that's Maddie Cyrus. She's so good, she's so dominant, and she's just the player that I think stands out the most.
We've had a lot of players on, too. I'll give a shout out to Haley Armstrong, somebody that did Know Your Hoosier 2 years ago, another just a fun person and a fun player. The Big Ten, it's a tough conference to be in. Volleyball is not easy. You had your national champions last year. Yeah, your national championship was between Nebraska and Wisconsin. Those are two Big Ten teams. So, Gabe, I'll start with you. What is kind of the Big Ten matchup you're most looking forward to?
Honestly, I'm going to say Penn State. That's probably one of the best teams in the Big Ten when it comes to volleyball, and it's away. So I want to see an upset. It's going to be tough because they're 8-0, they're undefeated, but it's at Penn State, and I want to see some momentum building up going into that game. So I think I want to see an upset going into the Penn State game.
You got Penn State. Andy?
I want to go out October 5th, 8 p.m. here at Bloomington. National champs Wisconsin comes into town. I am excited for that game, see what we're all about, test our skills against the best.
So, I mean, similar to Gabe, I had Penn State. I mean, the season opener is September 23rd, and then they come here at November 6th. Now, another thing, too, is that this is the first conference matchup between Penn State and Indiana since 1991 without Russ Rose. So Penn State has their first-year head coach in Katie Schumacher-Cauley. And another one, the obvious pick, how could we forget the in-state rivalry against the Purdue Boilermakers? We have two matchups in October. I believe they are the 14th and the 31st or the 30th. But, I mean, how can you go without talking about Purdue, who is currently ranked?
And we talk about all these ranked teams. The biggest question still remains, does this team have enough to really survive the Big Ten in a grueling schedule? Andy, what do you think?
Not this year. I do not believe they have enough in the tank to compete against Wisconsin, Purdue, Penn State, all these ranked teams that the Big Ten has been producing lately. So it's just a matter that the conference is too tough this year.
So you have them another rebuilding year?
Yeah.
Gabe, what about you? Are they going to compete, or is it, again, a rebuild?
Honestly, I think the only shot they have is against Iowa or Ohio State. Like you said, Big Ten is extremely dominant when it comes to volleyball, and IU is just not at the top of volleyball. So I think if for the remainder of the season, if they're going to take a few games, it's probably going to be against Iowa or Ohio State.
Yeah, so similar to what he said, I think Indiana is in a better position to compete with those teams. Steve Aird returns 14 players to this year's roster, which is the most he has ever returned on any of his programs. And there are teams like Northwestern, Maryland, which were like on the bubble but didn't make it. I think Indiana can compete with them. Iowa, Michigan State, and Rutgers, I think they'll also be competitive since they were at the bottom of the league. But with the ranked teams, as you said, there were 7, like Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Penn State even. It's going to be a little tough. So I think maybe they could take a set, maybe even 2 if everything goes well, but I don't think it's this year. I think it's just going to be competing with the bottom 7.
Well, before we get to break, I got one more question for you guys. Let's make some predictions. Let's have a good time. You know, this team, we know they're not going to win a ton of games. They're still rebuilding. They have all of the charisma. They have a great team. You know, they're really great to be around. What's their final record prediction? What do you have, Griff?
So, again, I think they're going to be better than last year, but I don't think they're going to take, that giant leap. Steve Aird had a 16-win season his first year and has not been able to get back up there. I think they'll have around 12 to 13 wins.
Andy?
I have them the same. You know, based off what they've done this year, the schedule coming up, I have them at 12 and 20.
Personally, I thought I was going to be generous, but like Griffin said,
You can still be generous.
I'm gonna be generous. I'm gonna say 11 wins. So I thought I was being generous before I heard Griffin and Andy's statements, but like Griffin stated, they're on a rebuild, so it is an improvement from last year, 10-22. So I'm going to go 11-21. I think they'll take 1 or 2 games before the Big Ten games start picking up, and once those start picking up, I think they'll take 4 or 5 games.
Well, that sounds good. But, guys, stick around because we're going to play Know Your Hoosier in a little bit. Coming up after the break, though, Spencer Hoffman gives an update on the latest with head coach Steve Aird. Then Paula Cerame joins us for an exclusive interview. We'll be right back. Welcome back. There's been a lot of turmoil with head coach Steve Aird over the past year. A lot has come out, and not a lot of answers have really, been told. With more is our IUSTV Sports Beat reporter, Spencer Hoffman.
Thanks, Evan. Over the offseason, questions were raised surrounding the IU women's volleyball program involving head coach Steve Aird's care for the mental health of players. The IDS reported that in December of last year, IU launched an internal investigation to attempt to ascertain what Aird's behavior was like inside the locker room. IU feared for the public image of how the program deals with their mental health of their student athletes. This investigation ended a month later in January when the program agreed to comply with all recommendations from the school. During the investigation, players dismissed the claims that their head coach did not care for their mental health. In Aird's 4 years at IU, there have been 15 players who have transferred and did not finish out their careers with the Hoosiers. The most recent group of freshmen is made up entirely of international players. However, there was one other recruit for this class who decommitted and signed to number 11 Penn State, which could be a sign of how the program is heading in the ultra-competitive Big Ten. With Aird at the helm, the Hoosiers have been in a steady decline, going from 16-15 in his first year to 10-22 last season. Time will tell if the Hoosiers can bounce back this year. Evan, back to you.
Thanks, Spencer. Welcome back, everybody, to the panel. But right now, the panel's a little different. We have a special interview. Paula Cerame from the IU Volleyball Team is here. Paul, thank you so much for coming in and doing this.
Thank you for having me.
So basically what this is, we do this segment pretty much once a semester. It's called Know Your Hoosier. You're our guest Hoosier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 7 questions. Answer them truthfully. But some of your teammates might be offended by them. I'm just going to fully preface that right now.
Okay.
But just know our panelists are going to come back and they're going to try to guess your answers.
Okay.
So they'll get multiple choice. We used to do it without multiple choice, and it was just a hassle, and it'd be like 1 or 2 right at a time. But now we're going to do multiple choice. So the first question, how old were you when you first started playing volleyball?
I was 6.
We're 6.
Yes. My
Pretty
whole family plays volleyball, so it was just kind of...
Mm-hmm. And I saw that you're originally from Puerto Rico, right?
I am.
So when did you move to the United States?
Yes. So I grew up in Puerto Rico. When I was 13, I moved to South Florida to Boca Raton, and then I went through high school in Fort Lauderdale, and then my first 3 years of college, I went to University of Florida, and then I transferred here.
Nice. Why transferring here?
I just wanted a different experience within college athletics.
Well, you picked an amazing school to come to. Anyway, let's talk a little bit specifics when you're on the court. Even before the game, everyone has that hype song. Like, I listen to hype music before coming in and doing these shows. So what's your pregame go-to hype song?
I'm pretty much EDM girl. Anything that has like any type of beat to it. I think we kind of all are on the team, so it's kind of fun.
Anything like specifically? I need like one solid song. I know it's tough to pick.
I think Heat Waves kind of plays in the locker room a decent amount, so I think that's kind of our go-to.
Mm-hmm. So here's a tough question, and your teammates might be upset, but what's that one teammate you don't want to pass the aux cord to?
Kaylee Bramblesberg.
Any reason why?
She just plays country a lot, or Morgan. They both do, and I don't mind country. I just need a little mix-up sometimes.
Country's great. EDM's also
Yes.
great, too. Here's another one that your teammates might not like. If you're stuck on a deserted island with 2 teammates, who would they be and why?
Probably Ashley and Gray. They're both really funny, and they would keep me at peace. Like, they're both, like, very high highs and low lows, so I kind of, like, in the medium. So probably those 2.
All right. Favorite restaurant in Bloomington? I gotta ask. I ask it all the time. Because mine is, I can't decide. There's so many good places to eat here.
Well, I love Uptown, but I also love Feta, which I don't think that's a very popular one. But,
No, where's that?
I couldn't even describe it, but it's like Greek food kind of thing. Kind of make your own Greek food, so.
I mean, Greek food is great.
Yeah.
I love Greek food. The last question I have for you, if you could describe your volleyball career in one word, what would it be?
I grew a lot, so growing, I think.
Right. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't think anyone would guess if I just asked them that straight up. But Paula, thank you so much for coming in and doing this
Thank
interview.
you for having me.
Good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Hope you enjoyed that break. Now on the panel still, Gabe Fencer, Andy Mazer, and Griffin Healy. Griffin, you've played this game once before, but for Andy and Gabe who are new, it's called Know Your Hoosier. If you haven't seen us play it before at home, it's a great game that we love. Griffin, I believe, got into a really intense rock, paper, scissors game the last time we played this. You even get on it, too.
Yeah.
But you did, and you won it. I think you won it, too.
Yeah, I believe I did. It was. Yeah.
You joined Callie Metzger and Justin Berger as the champions, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. But how this game works is I asked Paula 7 questions in our interview. This year we're doing it a little differently. It's multiple choice, so I'll give you guys 4 answers. You're not just going to blindly guess, but you have to get the answer that Paula gave. You guys ready? Everyone understand?
Yeah.
Questions, comments? All right, here we go. How old was Paula when she first played volleyball? A, 4, B10, C6, D8? Let's start with Andy.
I want to say 6.
So you have,
6
you have
results.
C6. Gabe,
I'm going to get 2 winners right here. We're going 6.
6 and?
You know what? I'm going to go with 8 just to be different. Because they said 8 was a choice or was 10 a choice?
8 and 10 are choices.
I'll go with 8 just to be different.
Just to be different?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes different isn't that right?
It's
Andy
a-
and Gabe get the point there. Paula started playing volleyball
Professional.
at
Thank you.
6 years old. So let me jot my points down. Gabe won, Andy won.
confidence that it's
You know,
fine.
we're not that high
It's
tech
okay.
here, and we don't have lower thirds yet for it, but we're gonna keep going. Anyway, Paula's originally from Puerto Rico. Gabe, I want to start with you. When did Paula move to the U.S.? Here are your answers: A, 13, B, 9, C, 8, and D, 14.
Can you repeat them one more time?
A, 13, B, 9, C, 8, D, 14.
Okay. I'm going to go with 13.
Okay, Andy.
B, 9.
I'm going to go with 9.
Gabe, you're 2-0 right now. You're on a hot streak. You're on a hot streak. Gabe gets the first 2 right. Here we go. Question number 3. What is Paula's go-to pregame hype song? Your choices are, and Gabe, we're gonna stick with you. We'll let you start this one. A, Heat Wave, B, Chicken Fried, C, Ferrari, or D, Fair Trade?
Chicken fried.
Chicken Fried, Zach Brown Band. Andy,
I'd go Fair Trade.
Fair Trade.
I'm going to have to go with Heat Waves.
Griff, welcome to the board. The answer was Heat Waves. She did say they played a lot of EDM and country, but she ended up going with Heat Waves. Number 4, who is the one person on the team that Paula would never give the aux cord to? Is it A, Haley Armstrong, B, Kaylee Ramelsberg, C, Cameron Hayworth, or D, Morgan Geddes? Griff, we'll start with you.
Okay. I'm going to go with Haley Armstrong on this one.
All right, Haley.
I'm going with Griff. Haley Armstrong. I need a dub.
2 on Haley.
I'm the hot one, so I'm going to go with Cameron Hayworth.
You're all wrong.
Oh.
The correct answer was B, Kaylee Ramelsberg.
How the mighty have fallen.
Exactly. Just a quick score update. We have 3 questions to go. Griffin, you have 1 point. Gabe, you have 2 points in the lead. And Andy, you also have 1 point. Question 5, we'll move on. Okay. If Paula was stuck on a deserted island with 2 teammates, who would they be? Now, there's 4 choices. 2 of them are correct. So you can pick 2 of the 4.
Could we get half a point and forget one of them?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not? Is it A, Ashley Zuloff, B, Kaylee Ramelsberg, C, Melissa Kiter, or D, Greg Gosnell? Andy, we'll start with you.
Let's go with A and D.
Okay, A and D. Gabe.
Ashley and Melissa.
Ashley and Melissa.
I'm going to go with B and D.
So, Andy got 2 points there. The correct answer was Ashley and Gray.
comeback
So
starts
Andy,
now.
you get 2 points.
Comeback starts now.
Comeback's coming strong. But both of you guys also get 1 point each.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Gabe, you and Andy are now tied in the lead. Griffin, you're still 1 point down.
Okay, fine.
Here's another one, and I'll give a bonus point to it if you know where this place is. Here we go. What is Paula's favorite restaurant in Bloomington? Your choices: A, Uptown, B, Feta, C, Upland, or D, Nick's. Gabe, I'll start with you.
So context clues. You said if you know where this is. All the others were so easy, so I'm going to go with Feta.
You're going to go with Feta.
Yeah.
Going to Upland.
Andy's going to go Upland.
You know what? I'm going to go with Upland too.
So the correct answer was actually Uptown. However, because you said Feta, if you know where Feta is, I'll give you a bonus point. Do you know where Feta is? You have 5 seconds.
5 seconds, okay. I'm going to go by College Mall.
Incorrect. It is over on 4th. Nobody gets the point there. We move on to our last question. If Paula described her IU volleyball career in 1 word, what would it be? We'll start with Gabe because you had the chance for a bonus point. A, emotional. B, eventful. C, growing. Or D, heartfelt.
Growing.
Go growing.
Growing. Don't pick the same one as me because
I
I'm trying to take the lead.
wasn't
All right.
planning to here. I'm going eventful.
Eventful.
I'm going to go with eventful too.
Well, we have a winner, and it's Gabe Fenster. The correct answer was C, growing. Any speech you want to make? Anything? Oh, we got a bunch of handshake. Give it a handshake there.
Speech.
Speech?
I like
Anything?
I'd like to thank Feta, the organization, the restaurant of Feta. What a beautiful place. I go there all the time, obviously, because I know where that is. I'd like to thank the toss-up host, Evan Kamiko, backup toss-up host, Hank Joseph. Even though he's not here, he's in our spirits.
Little shout out to the podcast.
Of course. Oh, shout out to the podcast, the Dagger Podcast. We just started yesterday. Tomorrow we have our next episode.
Just pretend the music's starting to play.
All right.
But yeah, super fun. Check it out.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it. Gabe, Andy, Griffin, thank you so much for joining me this week. As always, that's going to do it for the show. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IOCV Sports. Be sure to follow us because we got a ton of new content coming out. Like you said, the Dagger Podcast with Gabe and Hank Joseph, Toss Up every week, HSN, you name it, we got it. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up. Find out if we'll catch it. I dropped that, but we'll see you next week.